It's loading. Yeah.
Great. Good, good, good. And if you could do me a favor, just message.
All good on LinkedIn Live, Derek.
Super. Hi, folks, and good morning, and welcome to what is, for us at least, the most exciting day of 2022 so far, where we're launching an initiative that we've been working on for months. We have invested an enormous amount of time, energy, and money over the last couple of months getting Genos live together. And it's not just us that have done an awful lot of work. I know that several of you who are on the call here were part of the endless number of technical tests and broadcast tests and all sorts of things. And here we are. Everything is working and we're good to go. So we're going to kick things off in just a couple of moments. Now, before we do, let me introduce my co-conspirator here, Aoife Gorey. And those of you who are familiar with Genos will know Aoife. Aoife does all the heavy lifting. I get all the glamorous work on the front end. And Aoife is going to be handling all of the back end and the real communication with you while I do the front end stuff. So good morning, Aoife. It's good to get this going at last, huh?
I was just thinking that it's so good to be here for the first official kickoff. We have a really, really exciting year of content already planned for everyone. So delighted to have you all with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've done an awful lot of work over the last while. I keep saying we. In actual fact, I'm just doing the techie stuff. And Holly and Aoife have been doing the background work to communicate this out. And one of the things we've been doing is experimenting around with different sorts of adverts in Facebook and LinkedIn and so on and so forth. And I'm just curious what's really working for us. And we're trying to get the message out to the Genos world, which is the world. I'm just wondering how successful we were. So do me a favor, just tell me in the chat, or tell us in the chat, where you're dialing in from. And Aoife will feed some of that back to us here in a couple of moments. So let me just ask you, yeah, so where are you dialing in from today? And you can jump in there anytime we get any responses there, Aoife.
Perfect. Thanks, Derek.
But what's interesting, sorry, go ahead, Aoife. Were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I know there's a slight delay from the live show to when we're speaking, so we'll probably keep going for a couple minutes and then come back to that. I know from seeing the hundreds of people sign up for the show, we have folks from all over the world, from Africa, from the Middle East, from Hong Kong, from Ireland, England, all over Europe. So that's what we love about Genos events, is there really are people from all over the world. So good to have you with us.
The United Nations of Genos, huh? That's great. Super. Well, listen, let's go back. And another thing I'm going to ask you to think about and to feed back in the chat in a couple of moments is what if you see this session today and you say, man, That was great. I am not going to miss one of those sessions. That's going to be an important thing for me to grab. What time's going to work for you? And I'll tell you where we landed for now. We did a lot of experimentation over the last couple of months, and we got a lot of good feedback from people who said, hey, if you go for a breakfast slot, you get people when they're sitting down, you'll get me when I'm sitting down, having my coffee, getting my day ready. And it's an ideal time for me to have one of those sessions on. Sometimes I might be pottering, getting a few things ready while I have my coffee, but it's an ideal time for me. And so you have to start somewhere. So we started with breakfast time in GMT land. And the plan over the next couple of weeks is to run in around this slot at 8:30 and breakfast time in GMT land, except when we get guests who don't want to be up in the middle of the night. So several of the guests that we have are on the East Coast or the West Coast of the United States. And so we'll shift the breakfast time out so that it'll then be 8:30, let's say, in Pacific, on the West Coast of the United States, which is 4:30 in GMT land, and so on and so forth. But just for you, if you wanted to attend every one of these sessions, what is the perfect time for you? Now, as I say, we looked at breakfast slot and we looked at a lunch and learn slot as well. So do me a favor, when you're popping in where you're dialing in from, don't be afraid to pop in as well. Here's the ideal time and here's the time zone. And we'll come back to that in a couple of moments because I'm really curious to find out what's going to be the best slot. If you go onto Google, and you Google it, you get half a dozen different articles that say half a dozen different times. They'll talk about different days, different times. And I guess you can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please everybody all of the time. But what we'd like to do is get as close to that as possible. The good thing is, because the Genos world is the world in general, that if the slot that we land on doesn't suit you perfectly, you don't need to worry because it is going to move, as I say. So if it was a breakfast slot, it's going to, if we are in GMT, if it was a breakfast slot, sometimes it'll be 8:30 GMT, sometimes it'll be 13:30, which is favoring the East Coast of the United States, sometimes it'll be 4:30, which is favoring the West Coast of the United States, and we have some speakers coming in from Asia Pacific as well. So you will get to see them, and of course, we're going to be providing you with recordings of all of these. One, you'll be able to get them in LinkedIn, of course, but you'll also get the recordings coming back to you as well. So with no further ado, Aoife, anything there we want to highlight, or will I move on?
And no, we've got lots of feedback coming in on the chat. We have folks joining us from Nairobi, from Macedonia, some more folks from Nairobi, Helsinki in Finland, Serbia, Tasmania. Hi to Jane in London, Rachel, Ireland, Hong Kong, Lithuania, and South Africa. And Bulgaria as well. Hi, Dilly. Welcome, welcome. As normal, Derek, from all over the world.
Welcome all. Thank you, Aoife. So let me move on. And again, when you get a moment, just pop something in about what you feel is the ideal timing. So let me tell you about Genos Live. Genos Live was born out of the hunger that we've seen out there for information on topics that are going to help us get back into whatever is the new normal after the impact of the pandemic. And what we're hearing, both from the research and from our clients and from our partners, is that the most important things in the age of the great resignation, as they're referring to it, where people are struggling to hold on to their best people, and in the age of turnover contagion, where people are getting itchy feet and infecting other people with that itchy feet, that the most important topics we're hearing are topics related to emotional intelligence, psychological safety, resilience, well-being, and anything else that goes to the connection between people. So that's what we're focusing on with Genos Live. And previously, we would put out a webinar about every 6 or 8 weeks. And we're getting fantastic response to that, but it just doesn't seem to be enough to meet the hunger for information that's out there on these topics. So that's what we're setting up to serve, is to feed into that need for information on what do we do with our people now? How do we work with our people most effectively in this hopefully post-pandemic period? We're going to be broadcasting on LinkedIn Live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and possibly a couple of other channels over the next couple of months. But those are the main ones. So you can tune in wherever you like to get your content. And of course, the recordings will remain in the timeline after those sessions. We're going to be broadcasting weekly. I've already spoken about the time thing, and we'll tune that as we go on. And it's going to be hosted by yours truly. And apologies for that picture. I shouldn't impose that upon you at this time in the morning. But the other one that I had was about 15 years old, and I was getting a little bit of a slagging about it. So, and of course, Aoife, whom you've met, and if you've been on Genos events, you know you're very, very familiar with Aoife. Somebody you may not see so much is Holly, and Holly is always involved in all of these sessions, doing a lot of communication work. She's actually on at the moment, monitoring the feeds and so on and so forth, and tends to stay to the background and likes it in the background. So a shout out to Holly. She's done an enormous amount of work on getting this together as well. So that's the team that's going to deliver. But we're just going to be the facilitation team. We're not necessarily going to be the presenting team week by week. World Economic Forum, LinkedIn, Harvard Business Review, no matter who you spoke to, even before the pandemic, they were saying emotional intelligence is the critical skill set as we move into the next decade. So one of the things that we're obviously focused on right now is emotional intelligence. And that's going to be one of the key focuses of this session. But another thing that's very much related to it, they are first cousins and they're intricately linked, is well-being, resilience, and psychological safety. During this period, during the last 2 years, when we've gone through a period of such enormous uncertainty, which is something that the human brain doesn't like, it has unsettled even the most robust of us. And so what we're hearing from clients is what we need to know about is psychological safety. We need to know about resilience to help our people cope with both the current pandemic situation, but what's expected to be the backlash of the pandemic when the pandemic ceases to be the really big bad dog that it is right now, because there's a suggestion that that's going to be just as demanding on people. So these topics are going to be tremendously important, making people feel safe, secure, giving them the skills to survive in this world. But we also are going to focus on absolutely anything else that is associated with helping people to show up both to themselves and to the people around them in a manner that gets the best from themselves and others. So it's really going to be around how do we help people get the best from themselves and from one another. Another focus is going to be on practicality. Yes, in everything that we cover, we'll cover the research, we'll cover the theory, we'll cover all of the background stuff. But our aim in every session is that you walk away with something that you can immediately and practically implement. So practical advice and suggestions and practically implementable ideas. And that is the core focus. Now, during the week, I said to Aoife, what I'm going to tell people is, if you stay up with Genos Live, you'll stay up on all these topics. And she said, Derek, whew, that is a big, let me just show you the smile on her face there. That is a big boast. So I turned that into a vision because it is the vision. There's a huge amount of development and new information coming out on these topics. And our vision is that, and our aim is that we'll produce a show on a weekly basis, that if you stay up with that show, you'll be getting all of the information you need on these topics. You won't need to go elsewhere. So that is the vision, if you like, that's going to drive the show. So we're going to bring that information to you in several different ways. And it's not going to be just the Derek and Aoife chit-chat show. First thing we'll do, and those of you who attend our webinars will be familiar with this, the concept of masterclasses, practical tools and techniques, ideas and suggestions on things that you can do right away that will change your environment. So very much Derek and Aoife presenting to you, talking to you, sharing very often some of the content that we have developed for clients over the last couple of years. A second feature, which is probably going to end up with a change of name for reasons I'll tell you in a moment, that we put in is 12 books you must read in 2022. And it's not necessarily 12 books published in 2022, but the 12 books that you must read around these topics in 2022 to really have yourself refreshed and up to speed on what you need to know about psychological safety, about emotional intelligence, about well-being and resilience in order to be effective in the post-pandemic period. I'll show you some of the people we already have signed up for that. We have had an amazing response from people. Some of the great authors in this area. So much so that this could easily become 18 books you must read in 2022 or 24 books you must read in 2022. Because we really have had a phenomenal response to that. And I'll show you some of the people we're getting that. We're also going to bring in some people from our clients and from industry, people who are working with psychological safety, with emotional intelligence, with well-being, with resilience, achieving some success, and asking them to share with us what is it that has worked for you. So these are going to be people like yourselves from the front lines who are out there making it happen. So real, if you want to call them, war stories. And then another feature will be looking at the news. Now, in many of your countries, you'll have this roundup. We have it certainly here on the radio on a Saturday morning, on the TV on a Sunday morning, where you'll get a couple of panel members will come in and they'll open up the newspapers and they say, what was in the papers overnight? Well, what we're going to look at is what is in the media about these topics over the last month. And just talking about what are the developments, what's new, what are people saying, what does it mean for you? So again, part of that vision of keeping you up on that topic. Give you an idea of some of the masterclass titles that are coming up. Just next week, we're going to be talking about how you explain emotional intelligence to a 10-year-old, because let's face it, if you can make it meaningful and interesting, engaging for a 10-year-old, you can make it interesting, engaging, and meaningful for anybody. Week after, because of the times that we're in, we're going to look at a really practical session. I would say get everybody you can who you think is struggling in any way with stress along to this session. And we're going to look at a very practical session called Rebooting Your Stress Mindset for 2022. And I guarantee you, we've done this with hundreds of people, that you will feel a shift in the way that you manage stress just in that very short session. Week after that, we're bringing on one of our practitioners. We're going to talk about the work that she has done with several organizations on raising the emotional intelligence of their leadership team. I'm going to give you 5 practical suggestions on things that you can do right away that will make a difference. This is what I'm kind of excited about, and this is going to sound like a bragathon on my part, but I've done a couple of TED Talks, and they really, it's a great experience. It was a bucket list thing for me, and an awful lot of people have a TED Talk on their bucket list. Well, thanks to the help of a lady from Bespoke Communications in the north of Ireland, we will have in one session 4 organizers of TEDx events. So we'll have people from Dunleary, from Stormont, from Telford, and I'm struggling to remember the 4th one. I cannot remember, but we're going to have the people who actually organize those events and select speakers coming on and telling you, how do you go about landing a TED Talk? A couple of weeks later, we're going to bring Camila in, and she's going to talk about how you ace the TED Talk once you've landed the TED Talk. That's what Bespoke Communications do. We're going to look at how to use EI to raise psychological safety and a lot of other things besides. So we have a lot of things coming up over the next couple of months, which are really, really relevant if anything that you do has to do with getting the best out of people. This is going to be a really, really meaty layout. Now, actually, before I talk about the guests we have lined up, because I'm just going to tease you a little bit, let me just go back to Aoife and see. Aoife, anything else that we should be drawing attention to in the chat?
Just a lot of other countries around the world. People have posted in where they're joining from. Thank you so much. Lots of great feedback on the timing. We'll have to go, and there's a lot of comments here, so we'll have to go absorb that in, take it into account. A lot of people are saying right before 2 p.m. 2 o'clock is ideal. Lunch and learn is ideal, and a lot of people are agreeing that the breakfast suits them. So what we'll probably do over the course of the next few weeks, when the Genos live audience tends to grow, we'll probably survey people so we can be making these decisions in the fairest possible way.
Yeah.
But please
Yeah.
continue to give us feedback. And if there's topics there that you've seen maybe aren't listed on the Genos live page, or Derek hasn't covered, that you'd really love to hear about, we have designed the show with you in mind, so we want to hear from you what you'd like us to feature or us to bring in an expert to speak about.
Yeah,
I think that's
yeah,
it.
absolutely. And I think that's really important that we tune this into what it is that you want to hear. We know from our clients what they want to hear, and so we're sharing that with you. But we'd be guided by you as well. So yeah, thanks for that, Aoife. So let me go back and tease you with some of the people that we have coming up over the next while. If you're a coach, you've probably heard of Richard Boyatzis. He is one of the most eminent researchers in psychological safety and in the science of coaching. And he's been doing longitudinal studies over the last 20 years on how you help people to change. His latest book, Helping People Change, is an absolute masterwork. And it's a masterwork in what he calls compassionate coaching, vision-led coaching. And honestly, I can't recommend it highly enough. In preparing for Richard's visit, which is, I think, the 24th of February, I've been listening to his book again as I exercise and as I walk. And again, it just got me thinking. It really stimulated an awful lot of great ideas. Richard's going to be in with us and with a small panel, doing an interview talking about his work and how you help people change. Mark Brackett, you may have heard of from Yale University. He's written Permission to Feel. And if you've ever been on a Genos emotional intelligence program in Europe, you may have remember us using a small app called the Mood Meter. Well, that was designed by Mark and his team. It was a really lovely piece of software for building self-awareness. So Mark is going to be joining us, again, talking on the principles that he outlays in Permission to Feel, and opening up to you guys for your questions. Amanda Blake has done an enormous amount of work on what she refers to as embodied self-awareness, the body-brain connection. Now, this is not woo-woo stuff. This is hard, solid science, which was at the core of her PhD thesis, and it was published in a book called The Body and the Brain. So that one, for me, I'm just fascinated by the idea. Cory Muscara, one of the most prominent podcasters in the mindfulness space, he broadcasts on a daily basis, and I would go look for his name. If you listen to podcasts, go and look for his name. It's only about 15 minutes long every day, and it's a really outstanding podcast. And he's written a really outstanding book called Stop Missing Your Life. And there's a sense in which I think our timing with this is perfect. As you go into a new year, starting to think about what you want to do with that year and what you want to do with your life in general is very apt. So Cory will be joining us. Lovely, lovely guy. Many of you will have read Trust Factor from Paul J. Zak. And Paul is about to publish another book. I don't think I'm allowed to say what it is, but I can tell you that I'm really excited about the title myself, and I think knowing our audience that you will be as well. He's best known for Trust Factor, and really fascinating research, brilliant guy, great consultant. So he's going to be sharing some really, really practically implementable research-based advice. And then finally, we have another Daniel Goleman collaborator. That's Carrie Chernas of the Emotional Intelligence Consortium. And Carrie is going to come in and talk about leadership, emotionally intelligent leadership, or leading with feeling. So bottom line, we have some really fantastic guests lined up. And there's part of me wants to tell you about the ones that have said, yes, I'll do it, but that we haven't nailed down yet. And I just don't want to do that because I don't want to disappoint anybody. But I can tell you, as of going to press, if you like, for this session this morning, Sean Fargo, who's the CEO of Mindfulness Exercises, on board. We have those 4 TEDx organizers on board. We have Camila on board for the How to Ace Your Talk. So if you've ever wanted to do a TED Talk, we'll do these 2 sessions 4 weeks apart. One of them will be, how do you approach organizers to get your talk? And the next one will be, you've got your talk, how do you ace it? We have the head of HR for Novartis in Israel, who's going to talk about practical issues and what they've done to cope with the current climate. And then we have the former director of talent acquisition in Amazon coming on again to talk about what do people need to be focused upon now in this post-pandemic period. So it is a seriously heavyweight lineup. And one of the nice things is, we're starting, since we started to talk to some of these folks, to get other people coming back to us and said, I've heard about what you're doing. Would you be interested in? So I really think we're going to get some interesting momentum. And I think it's all around the fact that we're just focused so tightly on everything to do with getting people working together really well. I think that focus is going to stand to us very well. So lots more in the pipeline. Now, let me just cut back again before I go to the next part and say, Aoife, is there anything else that we should draw attention to that's come up in the chat since? Don't want to leave anybody out. Oh, have I lost your sound?
Sorry, that was on my side.
That's okay.
No, lots of comments coming in. Good to see us. They're delighted about the initiative. Lots more people dialing in from different countries around the world and sharing feedback with us on the timing. So now that you've had time to digest what we have in store, and as Derek said, we have a lot more planned, please do share feedback with us in the to our email, on our website, and on our social media channels as well, because we really would love to hear from you.
Oh, and yeah, and I'm going to be really self-serving and say, if you're looking at this and you're saying, ooh, this looks good, I know some people that would be interested in this, please pop it up on LinkedIn. Just pop up a comment about it and just mention that you're in here, because it'll just help us to get a couple more bodies in. Because the more momentum we have, the easier it is to get the quality of speakers and guests that we want. So the bigger the audience, the more guests are attracted to it. So thanks Aoife. So let me turn this, and again, I just want to repeat something that Aoife said before. This really is something that we want to focus upon, what you want to hear. So let me ask you in the chat, just to tell us, what are the things you'd like to see our guests or see us address? So what are the challenges that you really want to see featured in sessions? So while you're popping that in, let me tell you what we're hearing from our clients. During 2021 and coming into 2022, we're hearing people talking about 3 things mainly. Now, they don't necessarily use the language I'm going to use right now, but in general, it's what people are saying are the hot topics. And by the way, in a lot of cases, they are using language. And one of them is emotional intelligence, in helping people, creating an environment where people show up to one another in a way that engages them and has a positive impact and gets the best from everybody and eliminates that underlying fear that has come from the uncertainty of the pandemic. So emotional intelligence, just as it has been for the last 4 or 5 years, seems to be one of the really hot topics as we're coming into 2022. Second thing is psychological safety. And psychological safety has been spoken about for more than 20 years, but suddenly it's really important because people feel more than a tad unsafe in the current climate. So psychological safety is the second theme. And then the third one that has really come from kind of nowhere in the last 2 years to being a very prominent ask on the part of our clients and our partners, and that is team coaching. Working with teams to help teams work together more effectively. And you can kind of see the linkage, can't you? I mean, getting people working more effectively together is a function of the extent to which they feel psychologically safe, the extent to which they show up to one another in an emotionally intelligent way, the extent to which they're aware of themselves and others. So there's a really strong theme arising in terms of what people are looking for. But what are your challenges? What is it you would like some help or advice on? And Aoife, By the way, I just noticed that your audio has died. Don't be afraid to say in there, and I'll bring you back on when we have something in the chat to share with people. So that's one thing that would be really, really useful to get some feedback. Now, here's the other thing. Do you know any authors, any thought leaders, or any senior executives who would make great guests on these topics? You've seen the caliber of people that we've been lucky enough to get commitments from. If you know of anybody who has that sort of thought leader persona, or has written a really important book in this area, or has done things that really make a difference, we would love for you to recommend them to us or us to them, whatever way we want to put it. So please think about it. You don't need to bang it into the text chat right now if you do have somebody off the top of your head. But on an ongoing basis, if there's somebody out there that we really should be talking to, we would really love to hear about it. So absolutely anybody who has something new and fresh and practical to bring. So are we getting anything back on challenges there yet, Aoife? I know there's always a little bit of a time delay because of the streaming thing.
Sure. A really good point from Laura, Derek. Leadership development during rapid change.
Right. And you know what? Thank you, Laura. I think that's one I would, my wife hates me saying this, but hold that thought. Because that's really Richard Boyatz's wheelhouse, because and his book is excellent on it, and I think you absolutely nailed it. Trying to lead people through a time of constant change and constant uncertainty is a really hot one. But we'll take note of that, and there may be some other folks we might. In fact, that may give us some search terms to go looking for other speakers. So thank you for that, Laura. Anything else there, Aoife?
Just feedback that the concept and the content sounds fantastic, very exciting content, and looking forward to it.
Great. Thank you, Aoife. Okay, so what do we got there now? Yeah, how do you get this? Now, here's the thing. We know that you are busy as bejesus, and we are too. So how are you going to remember? If you look at this and you say, wow, I really should tune into that. Some of those sessions are going to be really important to me. How are we going to keep you informed? Well, first, obviously, we're going to announce it weekly on the 4 platforms, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on YouTube. So they'll be announced there. But the very best way to stay up on this is just to subscribe to a reminder list. So if you probably know the drill already, but if you don't, if you want to have us give you reminders of the sessions each week, so we'd send you out an email that says, this week it's Richard Boyatz's, he's talking on this, we're starting at this time, we'll be on this channel, and instructions for how to get there. Well, then please just open up your camera as if you're going to take a picture, hold the camera up to the QR code, and it'll prompt you to go to a link online, and that will just look for your name and your email address. And the only thing we'll be using that for is to alert you to the sessions on a weekly basis. If for some reason, and sometimes it happens, your camera doesn't like the QR code, you can see the URL underneath there. So this is probably the very best way just to get that little aide de memoire that will keep you tuned in. And some of the sessions will be really, oh God, I gotta see that. And some of them will be, yeah, I'll catch the recording. By having the alert coming in on a weekly basis, it just keeps it front and center in your mind. Now, I'm going to leave that code at the end of the screen in a few moments. So if some of you are thrashing around looking for your phone or looking for somewhere to key in, don't worry, it's not going away. You'll see it come up on the bottom of the screen in a couple of moments. Other thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be looking for a panel of panelists, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically we're going to put together a cadre of people who are interested in being panelists, because on some of the sessions we'll have 2 or 3 people who'll be in there to help drive the conversation with our guest speakers. And what we'll try to do is very much match the panelist to the speaker, match the background of the panelist to the speaker. Now, I have to tell you that since we started the announcements during the week, we've had a phenomenal response from people on being panelists. So if you apply, what we'll do is, as I say, over the next couple of months, we'll start to match people up. But please don't be disappointed if you don't get in next week or the week after, because we've had a tremendous response. But we really would love to have you, if you have particular expertise in an area, get you in and match you up with some of the speakers that we have coming along. All you need to do, if you're interested in that, is just drop us a line to eu@genosinternational.com. And by the way, that QR code down at the end, that's just the same reminder list QR code again. So that's largely what we wanted to do in terms of introducing you to this session this morning. So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you all a question. Have we missed anything? Is there anything we should be thinking about? Have you any brilliant idea that would really dramatically increase the value of these sessions to yourself and other people? Please, 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 if you do, share it in the chat. And I'm going back to Aoife for the last time just to say, Aoife, anything else we should be sharing with people or from the chat?
Yeah, definitely, Derek. So we had a great point from Frankie or Francie. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. I believe so.
Yeah.
How to explain the importance of EI to managers. This is, I think, will be a really, really great one for our Genos practitioners and any type of coach working with EI.
Brilliant. And let me interrupt just for 1 second, Aoife, and say, and I don't mean to imply that your managers are 10-year-olds, but the session, if you can explain it to 10-year-olds, you can explain it in a very meaningful way to your leaders. So actually, next week's session is going to be very meaningful for you. Thanks, Aoife, and thanks, Frankie.
Sure. Gert, Derek is suggesting Walter Lazarer.
Okay.
Says you know him.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gert, if I hope I'm remembering correctly, he's the mountain climbing gentleman. Yeah, that would be a really interesting one. Thank you. I'll reach out to you on that.
And David is just confirming this is a weekly program, to which I responded yes, except for the odd week of vacation that we take during the year.
Yeah. From time to time we will.
A couple of suggestions then for topics: building trust for accelerating change.
Wow.
Yeah. And team coaching is a great topic. We are seeing the need here. I think David is in Hong Kong, David, correct? And Peter Nixon, author of The Dialogue Gap.
Wow. And let me tell you, first off, on the trust one, that's really interesting. And Aoife will obviously take note of that, because we have Paul Zach coming in, and he is the foremost researcher on trust. And that might be a topic for him to address as part of his session. On team coaching, I am just so, I so want to say to you who we have coming in to speak about that, but I just haven't nailed it down yet. So, but it's a heavy hitter is all I want to say. So yeah, great. Thank you. That just underlines for us, we're going in somewhat the right direction. Anything else there, Aoife?
Yeah, great point from Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Good to have you with us. Will we list the books that you've mentioned that she'd love to read them before the guests come to the sessions?
Wow, that's a really great idea. Yes, we will. We already know who 8 or 9 of them are going to be, so we'll put that list out to you for sure. That's a really brilliant idea. Thank you for that, Rachel.
Yeah, because me, Rachel. I'm actually going to host that on the Genos Live page, because of course, in return for these different authors coming on, we are going to be promoting and encouraging people to read their books. So it makes a lot of sense for us to post that there. So I'll let you know when it's up.
Yeah, great. Super.
Okay, let me see. I think there is a slight lag between the lives coming in on the comments with the tech, but I think that's all the comments we have for now.
Okay. Well, folks,
thanks for the engagement and the feedback. We appreciate it.
No, it's really do appreciate it, and it's great to get it, because the other thing is, I can't say this often enough, but our ability to bring in and attract guests like that, of this quality, is very much proportional to the number of people we have coming to the session, the amount of interaction we get with it, the amount of interest. So that if you suggest to us, hey, would it be really great to have Aoife Gorey come in and talk about her book? And let's say Aoife Gorey is a heavy hitter and she normally demands enormous fees that we couldn't afford to spend. If we can go to her and say, hey, we got 2,000 people who really want to hear you come in and speak, that's a very different proposition to just saying, would you like to come in and speak? So really gratifying to see you online, to see you commenting. Please, please make the live sessions as often you can, because that changes the impact that the show has on the guests that we can get. So in the meantime, during the meanwhilest, as they would say in Monty Python, thank you very, very much. Thanks for the amount of interaction that you've given. Thank you, Aoife and Holly, for the huge work that's been done over the last couple of months. And thank you to you know who you are, to the people watching this who are part of the endless trials and questions. And will you dial in here and check this? And does my nose look big in this camera? All that sort of stuff. So thank you very much. We will see you next week, same time, same channel. I know, Ava, dad joke,
Okay.
for how to explain EI to a 10-year-old. So thanks a million. You have a really great day. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Don't forget to subscribe. Take care.
Cheers.